So, hi everyone, this is Elaine, and this is my channel. And I'm here with Angela Cheyenne, who's my friend who lives in England. And we have a lot in common. We have great chats and we have similar abilities. So, we like to get together and we like to tune into the world and find out what's going on in the collective. Um, we like to analyze things and pull in guidance, and we have a lot of fun doing that. And so this is my first live show, let's say, on YouTube, on my own channel at least. And Angela would like to interview me. So Angela, will you introduce yourself first? Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then take it away from there.
All right, Elaine. Yeah, it's great to be here on your channel. I'm very excited about your channel. Um, uh, a little bit about myself, and where should I begin? I was an actress. I've worked as an independent travel writer. Um, I I've been an assistant to a famous playwright, and all through this the whole of my life I've been on a spiritual path. I've always been, certainly since my teens, I've been looking for ways to connect, really. And I've been a palmist, actually. I don't think I've ever told you that, Elaine. I've read
No, no.
palms. It was a wonderful way of helping people. Anyway, this isn't about me, it's about you. So I'd love to start by asking you a little bit about your childhood. You're Irish, so
Mhm.
I believe you must have lived in Ireland for a good portion of your life.
Yes, yes, I've lived in Ireland a lot of my life, actually, Angela. So I grew up there. I was the fourth child in a family of five children. And my father was a businessman and also probably an activist in that he did a lot for his community. He was on this committee and that committee, started a lot of new things, such as a rugby club in the area. And my mother, for a good part of her life, was a stay at home mother, but she also worked later in life. She set up her own gift shop. So she was also entrepreneurial, which was nice. And that was kind of unheard of in those days as well. And also, my parents had a candle business later in life when they were retired. So, and that that was actually my idea when I was a teenager. They had traveled to Denmark and they had seen these beautiful candles that were sold together in pairs, and so you could hang them up. And they started selling them to businesses, local businesses in the area, to hotels and restaurants. And they had a great, thriving business for a good number of years. So I grew up in that atmosphere. My father was mad into rugby. He actually served on the Connacht branch of the Rugby Association of Ireland. He was always out giving speeches and on different committees. And I went to school in a tiny rural school, those kinds of schools that had fireplaces, which makes me sound very old indeed. But yeah, I did all of my schooling in that primary school, and it was an Irish speaking school. So I actually grew up bilingual, yeah, from the age of four. And my parents were also kind of very cutting edge in that most people in Ireland in those days spent their holidays around the coasts in Ireland. You might like rent a caravan or something like that. But my father became interested in France, and he took us on a holiday abroad to France and then also to Spain. And we spent a lot of our summers traveling to, in those days we used to say on the continent. So we spent a lot of our summers going to places like France and Spain. And that got us interested in languages. So at the age of 9, I took up French. And by the time I got to secondary school, I was already reasonably fluent in French. And so I did French at school, I did Latin as well. And then I went on to do a degree in German and Spanish. So in the end, I could speak 5 languages fluently, which I think was a great marker for my life. And looking back now, I learned a lot about imagery and symbolism and expression. And that now links into the work that I do, which is I help people with their health, and I help people with their life's problems. And I'm connected to spirit. And so spirit speaks to me often in pictures. I guess I'm pretty visual, I'm somewhat artistic. So spirit speaks to me in pictures and words and symbols and imagery. And then I start to hear sentences and the background story. So I think that's pretty much it for me growing up.
Well, that's an amazing background. And
Mhm.
I think you chose some really fascinating parents, because in that time, they, to be around them being so entrepreneurial must,
Mhm.
I'm sure, be helping you in
Mhm.
in in your life as well, to explore new things and to um, help your own career, really.
Yeah, definitely. And my father always took a special interest in his children. And he used to, he was kind of a quiet man when, except for when he was out socially, then he would come alive and he was kind of the life and show of the party. But he didn't waste time on small talk. But I do remember one profound thing he said to me, and that was that a woman should always have her own thing. And he was so right. And because he had seen it, he had seen marriages break up, and marriages that people who had been together for a long time. And in those days, the woman did not work, she stayed at home. And so she was left bereft, both financially and emotionally, and everything that goes with that kind of separation. So he turned to me one day in the car and he said, Elaine, a woman should always have her own thing. And I said that in his eulogy as well. I always took that on board. And I always felt that it was so important for me to have my own thing. For my own fulfillment. That was it, for my own fulfillment.
Well, that honestly,
Mm.
that really makes me well up, actually. It's so moving. But
Yeah, coming up to.
um, and um, so how did your first kind of inclination of the world of spirit and the knowledge that there was something else, not just a material world?
Yeah, I'd say I was probably always quite intuitive because I'm a sensitive person. I always considered my siblings kind of rowdy. So I was the quiet one at the table. I probably couldn't get a word in edgeways. Even the youngest one was more vocal than I was. So, but by the age of 12, I remember having an incident happen with my best friend. We're still friends to this day. Her name is Anya. And we were sleeping outside in a tent in the garden. We were all brave, thinking we could do this, that we could spend the night in the tent and we'd be fine. And I think it was our first time doing that as well. And then at about like 2 a.m. in the morning, we heard some guys coming home from a disco, and they were like shouting and roaring, and they sounded quite close. And then there were these donkeys at the same time braying, and donkeys are so loud. So it was kind of a commotion, and my friend started to get very panicky. She was almost going into a panic attack. She doesn't even remember this actually. She thinks I have a great memory. And then, excuse me, and I had been recently confirmed in the Catholic faith, which is, kind of confirming your faith and uniting with the Holy Spirit. And I had this sensation of the Holy Spirit coming into the tent. And the whole, now I feel emotional, the whole tent lit up with light, and this feeling of calm descended over me. And I said to my friend, no, no, it's okay. Those are just guys coming home from a disco. They don't even know we're here. They're just walking by. It's fine. And they're just donkeys braying. And she calmed right down and she noticed it. She was like, "Oh my God, Elaine, you're so calm." She noticed it. It was a difference. It was a presence. And that was the first thing that ever happened to me that was a connection to the other world beyond my own little life at that time.
That's so beautiful, Elaine. That's so beautiful. Funnily enough, when I was confirmed in the Church of England,
Mhm.
and the minister put his hands on my head, I really felt something happened to me. You know,
Yes,
connection was
something really does happen.
yeah.
Something really
And
does.
even though, I'm not a great fan of well, it doesn't matter, but the rules and regulations particularly, but it's something definitely happened. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like an initiation to spirit.
I think maybe
Mhm.
that's and we were but I probably both about 12, I suppose, when that happened.
Yeah, about 12 years of age.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
So and then you you were so talented. You spoke 5 languages, you took a degree. How did you, presumably you had other jobs before you began your career as a healer, really?
I did. I lived both in London. I worked for the London International Financial Futures Exchange in the business development department, where I did use my languages. I worked with a lot of crazy Italians and Germans, very chaotic. I hope they're not listening. Um, then I moved on to the US. I got a green card, and my husband got a green card, and my brothers also. We all got a green card at the same time. Moved to the US, and I continued to work in international business, particularly in finance. But I enjoyed the people around me, but I never really felt fully, I didn't feel like I had a path in that world. I wasn't really progressing. I did get promoted and that, but I guess my heart or my soul wasn't in it. And I had developed some health issues, minor health issues, but they were annoying and I didn't know how to deal with them. And in my experience, doctors never really have the full answer either. I mean, the doctor isn't you, so they don't know what you're doing on a daily basis. So I started to search and explore, and I stumbled across certain books. Um, the first book I stumbled across was Perfect Health by Deepak Chopra, where
Oh,
he talked about Ayurveda. And when I read that book and when I read it to others as well, it was sort of uncanny how Deepak could describe you as a person, yet he wasn't describing you. He was describing types of people. So he talked about the doshas, about the life currents that run through the body, and how people have different life currents. And so in the Ayurvedic world, I would be a pitta kapha. So a pitta is, they have a medium build and they're quite driven, they love information and they like to be successful and they're quite intellectual and they like to talk and they like to meet people. Um, and that's when they're in balance. When they're out of balance, that can become a little bit aggressive, overly ambitious, and often even maybe a bit ruthless. So I'm part Pitta, but I'm also part Kapha. And the Kapha side is the more watery, loving, nurturing, kind, caring type of personality. So he was able to describe me as a person, and then he was able to describe Paul as a person. And then the funny thing too was that his illustrations showed a man doing this self massage. It's called Abhyanga. And the illustration could have been a photograph of my husband. It was like, how does that happen? Even my eldest daughter, she saw the picture and she went, "Daddy." So there were a lot of coincidences, synchronicities. I just loved Ayurveda. I took to it like a duck to water, like I had already known it. And it's a very, very logical system of medicine. So I studied it in Boston.
wow.
Yeah, I studied it. And then through that, I also studied something called Marma massage, which is it's part of Ayurveda. And there are certain points on the body that if you stimulate them, you are stimulating the body to heal itself. So I did that with another lady. We partnered up and we were like practicing apprentices on a student person, and the student could feel that I was running energy. So she said there was a difference between me doing the murmur massage and the other lady. And so that was something I didn't know. I didn't even really know what energy was, to be honest. I didn't know I could run energy. So that led to other things. It led to me discovering Reiki. But I didn't discover that by myself. I discovered it through my hairdressing friend, Rose, who is also a lifelong friend. And I hope that she will listen. I'm sure she will. So Rose used to do my hair, and then she would tell me about Reiki. And then I said, Rose, will you give me a Reiki session? So we went downstairs in the salon and she gave me a Reiki session. And I found that when she was working on me, that I was problem solving and relaxing. So that would have been the pitta side of me, the mind always going busy, maybe worrying about things, who knows. So yeah, I was letting go and I was relaxing. And then a couple of months later, we went on holidays to Hilton Island, Hilton Head, it's called. It's in one of the Carolinas. I can never remember which. So I found a book about Reiki there and I was reading it. And then at nighttime when I was asleep, I had this huge presence come into my room. And the person spoke to me and said, "You must do this. You need to do that. You need to do this. You have done it before." And so in hindsight, I realized that was my teacher who I then went to learn Reiki. And she had a technique of sending her soul out to others so that she would connect with the right students. So
Goodness.
definitely it was her. I felt it and received the message. So I did. I studied Reiki. I studied Arch, Ancient Rainbow Conscious Healing, with the same teacher. I wrote my own modality, which is a connection to sacred geometry, to very powerful symbols. And I just over time, through the working with people, through laying my hands on people, I just started to hear spirit. I would be, say, working on somebody doing Reiki, and then I would hear a voice. And of course, I didn't want that at all, Angela. That I suppose that was considered a little bit crazy, but you just get used to these things. It starts to become your life. So I'd hear a voice saying, "Tell her this," or "She needs to know this." And so then I would relay the message, and it would always be spot on.
Yes.
So yeah.
And so little by little, you've added, I mean, I know that you keep on studying. You're always adding new modalities in a way as new things come online.
Yes, I am. I mean, I'm not knowledge hungry either. I trust what I know. I do often see people hop from one modality to another, or they might learn something and then they never really use it. So I'm not that kind of a student. I learn what I am very drawn to. I always know what's right for me. Um, and I keep learning. For example, right now, I just bought a course from a man called Eric Hunter, and he teaches pendulum healing. And it's not just using a pendulum to ask questions, it's using the pendulum to direct healing. So he, along with some colleagues, created a course called Meridian Healing. So you use the pendulum to determine where the health blockage is, and then you also use the pendulum to send healing to that area. So I found that quite fascinating because it really correlates with Ayurveda as well. Ayurveda and Chinese medicine are quite similar.
So you've brought all of these things together. I know you have all the different learnings that you have and your own knowledge and your own connection to spirit, which is really incredible. I mean, I know from having talked to you before and having had messages from you. So what is your main thrust now? Now that you're living in Florida, I don't know if that's permanent or.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how permanent it is. I'm loving it for now. I love the good climate, the good weather, and the outdoors life that really appeals to me. I'm not much of a future planner. I never was. I sort of tend to go with the flow of my life and what comes to me in the time. And I guess a lot of that would be intuition too.
Yes.
And probably my heart could be in Europe because I love the languages and the culture. So probably someday I will return. But my main thing now with people is helping them. I tend to be a problem. I'm almost like a health detective or and also a spiritual detective. So people come to me who've often had long-standing health issues or emotional issues. And when they're talking to me, spirit is also talking to me. So I think what happens is I hear between the lines, I hear what's not being said, and I can see them energetically as well. So a person might say to me, I've had this ongoing health problem, and I'll see that the problem is that their heart center, their heart chakra, if you like, is blocked. So there's something there that's not moving. There's an energy there that's not moving. And it could be like a long held sadness from childhood, could be a bereavement. It could be thoughts and beliefs that they have about themselves, about not being good enough, about maybe not being attractive or not being able to do anything. Anything about not being good enough is often very blocking to the body. So they're talking to me, I'm hearing spirit, I'm seeing pictures. And so we then resolve the problem together. I tell them, I relate to them what I'm sensing. And while I relay that, I'm also transmitting healing energy. And once a problem is acknowledged, it often tends to just resolve anyway. So the person who comes who might be in great distress, but by the end of the session, they're often extremely relaxed, have let the problem go.
That's absolutely wonderful. And I know that it really works from my own experience with you. But also I know you give classes.
Yes. I teach quite a few classes, and that's to help more people at once. So I've designed classes. Initially, I call them flash classes. My family always laugh when I say flash classes because all kinds of things are running through their heads. But I call them flash classes because I get in and I get out quickly. So we do things in a flash. So, for example, I might pick a theme like health, and often, and I know this is true for myself, I had my health wasn't great because I had the wrong beliefs. I had no marker for great health, to be honest. So I unravel that in myself and I help people unravel that in themselves. So I will, on a group level, I will find out the collective beliefs, the collective wrong beliefs that are blocking the good health, the collective trapped emotions that are blocking good health, the trapped energy, because we can have all kinds of trapped energy. And then I will do a healing transmission to help people resolve all of that. In other classes, I use the Mary Magdalene codes. It's a beautiful deck of oracle cards and that are encoded with healing energy and actually amazing advice. And so we pick a card for the group and we resolve problems that way. And I will do a healing transmission. And also at the moment, and this is probably my favorite class, and it's the most stretching class for me as a teacher, in that it stretches me beyond my abilities. And it's really a co-creation with spirit. So I am helping people tap into their own highest spiritual abilities. And you're in that class, Angela.
Yes, I am.
Yes. So that class is so gratifying for me because I have very highly developed people in that class who simply want to use the abilities that they already have and use them for the good of the world. And often people are afraid to use their abilities, or they're living just a completely different life that may be so conventional that they're afraid to step out of their box. For example, I'm thinking of a psychotherapist. So she is using, the conventional abilities to do her psychotherapy work, but her abilities are way beyond her conventional abilities. She sees, feels, knows, hears spirit. she can dip in and out of dimensions and she can resolve problems very, very quickly. So I'm helping her to, step out of the conventional box and into the whole of herself so she can help people on a greater level. So that's probably my favorite class. And as I said, the most stretching for me.
It's really fantastic, everything that you do, Elaine. So if people are interested in joining your classes or coming to you for healing or insight, what's the best way to contact you?
Well, I'm pretty active on Facebook. That seems to be my easiest method of connecting because it's quick and it's visual, which appeals to me. So you can find me under my name, Elaine Molloy. There's my picture, my profile picture, because I think there are a lot of Elaine Molloys in the world, is me wearing a white top and there's a garden behind me. So it's Elaine Molloy. And you can also reach me by email, and that's Elaine Molloy, spelt with an O, Molloy. And then there's a word arch, ARCH, at gmail.com. And I'll put this in the comments as well on the YouTube channel. So it's probably best to email me because I'm in a different time zone to a lot of people. So if you wanted an appointment, you could email me.
Well, that's wonderful, Elaine. It's been really inspiring hearing about your upbringing, which is, I think, very unusual, actually, and everything that you do. So thank you very, very much. It's been great talking to you and hearing all about your past and your present.
Thank you so much, Angela.
So very best wishes for the future, and I guess we'll leave it there.
Thank you, and see you soon.
Thank you.